Hello, everybody. Sri Kumaraswamy College Ausa welcomes all honorable dignitaries and participants here at the online platform for the international conference. The topic of today's international e-conference is Teaching from the Heart. Ask why and why not. The college, Sri Kumaraswamy College Ausa, every day organizes a webinar or national or international conference. The purpose behind arranging webinars and international conferences is to exchange knowledge among students, researchers, teachers, academicians, intellectuals, and knowledge seekers. The webinar series and conferences are becoming very successful, and behind it, there are the efforts of chief organizer and principal, Honorable Dr. Betkar, sir. I welcome you, sir, as the chairperson of this international e-conference. I feel immense pleasure to welcome today's chief guest and keynote speaker, Honorable Dr. Natalie ma'am from Hamburg, Germany, who is going to enlighten us on the topic Teaching from the Heart, Ask Why and Why Not. On behalf of the organizing committee of International E-Conference and Sri Kumaraswamy College Ausa, I welcome you, ma'am, heartily as the chief guest and keynote speaker. Before the beginning of the keynote speech, I would like to invite Chairperson and Chief Organizer, Honorable Principal Dr. M. Betkar, sir, for his opening words. Please, sir, welcome. Welcome. Thank you, sir. And now I would like to invite Honorable Dr. Natalie ma'am from Hamburg, Germany for her presentation and keynote speech. Please, ma'am, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the organizing committee who reached out to me, Dr. Betkar, for reaching out to me, inviting me. And I saw that this is a very, very distinguished lecture series or international conference. I saw a lot of international speakers and experts. So I'm a teacher by heart. I was trained as a teacher and I taught for many years before becoming a coach and speaker. And even today, I think what I do every day is teaching. And therefore, I'm very honored. I'm going to share a few insights with you. Some of these may be new, some of these may be what you're already applying. And I'm going to leave, if that's okay, also a little bit of time afterwards if there are any questions or comments. Okay, and I invite you to think about some of the questions that I'm going to raise. So first of all, teaching from the heart. I think most of us do that anyhow, just because it is who we are. We care about teaching. We care about what we do. We care about humanity. And we also care very deeply about our students. So teaching from the heart. One of the things that one of my favorite philosophers, which also is the one who inspires part of this presentation, once said is, I know you won't believe me, but the highest form of human excellence is to question oneself and others. And that is, in one way or another, the key of why we need to ask why and why not. And the other part is that as teachers, we are in education. And education has a variety of interpretations. Education sometimes means to re-educate people. It sometimes means to teach them something very specific. And yet, at the heart of what teaching really is, it means really it means bringing up children. It means to help them to think. And it helps them to be creative and use their minds. And I think when we go back to the real, and when we go back to the initial meaning of the word educere or educare, and we're realizing it really means the mind. How do we foster, feed, bring up, and train the mind? Then we're getting closer to what we're really here to do. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some things we simply need to train students to do, just like we got trained. There are certain things in math that we just have to learn. 1 + 1 is 2. We need to know addition. We need to know subtraction. Just like we need to, in today's world, know how to speak and understand English. The question becomes, how do we teach that? And so one of the ways that I'm looking at asking why and why not is the idea that it encourages us to connect with our students on a much deeper level. As a trained historian, or even now when I train leaders or train other educators, if I just tell you what it is and don't engage with you, it does not last that long. So we're creating a more meaningful learning environment that then allows the critical thinking in our students and also in ourselves. It also allows our students to think more creatively about the answers. Again, I'm going to refer, because that's the easiest for me to go do, let's say math or physics. There is a starting point, there's an end point. And we have a pretty defined way in most countries on how we get from A, the beginning, to the result B. If we encourage our students to think, they might come up with new ways to get from A to the result. And that, in my opinion, should not mean that they're wrong. Maybe they found a new way, which can really transform the way we do things. And then, of course, it helps our students to be much more thoughtful. Instead of just memorizing and just answering because that's what the book said, they begin to analyze, they begin to question, they begin to say, well, why does this go here? Why does that go there? Why is this word, if we're thinking about the English language, why is this a preposition? Why is that here? Or in history, why did those people do that? I can teach students the dates and the names. Unless I ask them why, they will not remember. And I've been there, I've tried that, because I actually had to re-educate a number of students in history. They came in with a certain idea of this is what I think it is. And then I started asking them, well, why do you think that? Why do you think the people did that? And then it becomes meaningful. Then the students begin to relate to the issues in a different way. And they become more intellectual curious. They want to ask more questions. Well, if the Germans did this, why did the US Americans do this? And why did the Australians do that? Or why did they not do this? And we've seen that, and I think we can still see that very often in children before they actually go to school. Because they tend to look at things and say, oh, why does this sand fall and this one trickles? They look at it already that way. It's an instinctive, natural curiosity. Now, of course, let's face it, it can be kind of scary when we're asking all of those questions of why do you think? Why is that so? Why not? Or even, how did you come up with that specific idea? It can be scary because there may be times when we have to say, I don't know that. I've had questions when I was still teaching history, and even nowadays sometimes. Why is that the way? Why did it happen? And I have to say, I don't know. And this power of saying, I don't know, is almost indescribable. The effect when a teacher is able to say, I don't know. What happens is that we're actually having the 3 dots at the end of the sentence. It's the same as saying, that's interesting, or I did not think of that. So now we're inviting our students to exercise their power and to say, whoa, I don't know that. What is the next step then? As a teacher, I will say, I don't know that, and I will research to find out and give you the answer tomorrow. And of course, this mostly happens when questions come up that are not directly related to the topic that we are experts in. So if I'm teaching history and you're asking me about the economy of a country, of course, I have a general idea, but I may not know all the details. So then I can say, I don't know that. It's not my specialty. Let me look that up, and then I will share it with you. So that is the power that we're then transferring to our students and also our colleagues, of showing them by example. If I don't know the answer, I will look for it. And I'm accountable because I'm getting back to you. And when you tell a student, that's interesting, they feel empowered. They're like, oh, she thinks that's interesting. Maybe there's something to it. And they will be motivated to do more research on their own or to try something else out on their own. And when you say, I did not think of that, suddenly it's like we're giving them wings to fly. Because now they're realizing there are different ways of looking at things. And that, as you all know, can be so powerful. Because we ask ourselves when we prepare a lesson, why am I doing this? How can I do this? Where am I going with this? Is this the right strategy? Instead of giving them this task, maybe I'll do group work. Maybe I will walk around the classroom with it. We as teachers, I believe we all, always ask, if I do an activity or when I teach this part of the curriculum, why am I doing that? And how am I doing that? Because we want to make sure that it's significant in the transfer of knowledge. And the transfer of knowledge, the true transfer from the heart, can only happen when we're open and honest and explain things while opening the door to students finding their own answers. And we've seen this over and over again. So as an example, not directly a classroom, but I could go there as well. This was when I was helping with a summit, and we were doing an exercise. And we had young adults there, children, young adults, and we had adults there. And we gave them a task. And the adults were all very focused. Okay, so these are the rules. This is how I'm supposed to do it. They didn't ask, why can I only do this? Or why do I have? They didn't ask. They look at the rules and they try to work with the rules. They did not solve the issue at hand. And here came the young adults and kids. They looked at it and said, that doesn't make any sense. Why do they not just talk to each other in this scenario? Why can I not just walk over there and talk to them? So the kids and the young adults solved the problem. And this was sort of a world problem that we gave them. They said, no, the rules are there, but they don't make any sense. So we're going to change it. And instead of not being able to talk to my counterpart, I'm going to walk over and talk to them. They didn't even think about it. For them, it was still the intellectual curiosity of why or why not. And we all do that as teachers as well, don't we? We ask our colleagues, ooh, how did you teach that? Ooh, how did that work for you? And we do this in our lives, with our family members, with our children. And so when we ask our students these questions, we're able to understand their motivations. We're able to understand why a topic may or may not be interesting to them. And once we know that, we can again look at our lesson plan and say, I need to change something to get these other 3 students in the conversation as well. And I know we cannot always tailor everything, but there are some things where we have a little bit of wiggle room. And then the students realize, wow, my teacher cares. If my teacher cares, it must mean I'm important. And if I'm important, then I want to contribute. My opinion, my voice, my intelligence matters. And of course, it all goes back to Socrates, as I said. Okay, you all most likely have heard of him and the consistent questioning that he did. I'm using Socrates because I'm from Europe. In many other cultures, there are other philosophers of that type as well, who helped wake up minds, raise minds, and improve overall living and humanity by asking questions, by thinking critically. And so for me, it is Socrates. And he kept asking, not just why and why not, also some other questions. And what it does, it allows us to look at things differently, as in the example with the workshop and the scenario that the adults could no longer solve. And as scary as it may sometimes seem when we say challenge the established norms, it is important. A challenge does not mean that we change anything. It just means you're asking why. And if the answer is reasonable, then we say, okay, this norm makes sense. We'll keep it. And so a challenge does not have to be scary. What is really important in the world we live in today is that by asking our students questions and engaging them and asking them to think critically, which we only can do because we care, then we help them be creative. And let's face it, every day there are new innovations, new technology, new challenges that we need to face. Whether it's the weather, whether it's AI, there's always something new happening. And in order to address those challenges, we need to ask questions of those who are still fresh. Because in the end, what we all want to create are intelligent, creative, and productive, caring human beings. That's the way that our children come in. That's the way we come in. And as teachers, we have the power to continue that, because parents bring their children to us, their kids, their students, their young adults, so that we continue the process. And so some of the additional questions, as you probably know, that Socrates would ask would be, how do you know? Or can you give me an example? What are the consequences of that? What's the counter argument? How can you maybe disprove that, so that we really look scientifically at all the angles and can say, well, the sky is blue because. We don't stop at the sky is blue because, which a lot of people like to do, but we actually are able to give the reasoning. And let's face it, you're already doing a lot of this. I may not know you personally, but you're in this international conference on education and teaching and collaboration. So I know you talk to your colleagues already, asking and sharing. That is asking why and why not. I'm sure you're already doing projects in classes with the younger kids, with the young adults and the older students. You're giving them projects so they can think and organize. You're giving them experiments to work on, maybe social experiments, maybe physics experiments. And you let them work in teams and groups so that they can see, how does that work? And most of the time, not everybody in the group has the same opinion. And maybe you do what I used to do, have them go out and interview other people. And I'm sure, as you see there, the 3 dots, there's much more that you do. And to show you the impact, I used to live in the United States for a long time. And I'm a history teacher, as I mentioned. So I'm very big on discussing stereotypes. And I had some students of African American descent. I had some Caucasians. I had a mix of students in my classes. And there are, of course, always stereotypes. And I would go in purposely the first day, specifically dressed in black and white. I would wear specific jewelry. And then I would ask the students, again, this can be scary for some, now that you see me, what do you know about me? And they were coming up with all sorts of things. And I just wrote them down, no judgment. I just wrote everything on the board. And then I asked them, why do you think, for example, I'm married? And they would say, well, because you have a ring on your right ring finger. I said, interesting. In some countries, people don't wear a ring. In some countries, your wedding band is on the left hand. So I helped them open up their ideas by this very simple exercise. And it actually was very successful. Number one, they ended up relating more to me, so we could have those why not questions. But in addition to that, they really also began to go outside. And when they saw somebody outside in the cafeteria, they wouldn't just say, oh, well, she is wearing black clothes, so I don't like her. They were beginning to go into the cafeteria and say, okay, this person's wearing black clothes. I'm going to ask them why. And this was very powerful. And you can probably see how this can transcend a lot of different areas. So when we're using these Socratic methods, we still need to pay attention, of course, that the grammar is appropriate, that the respect is there. And in some courses, you have more opinionated discussions. So you do need to set the ground rules a little bit, right? Of saying, well, we respect each other and we focus on the issue, not the person who said it. We focus on the issue, not whether or not you have the right answer. There were many times when a student would give me an answer. It was very thoughtful. And I would be very careful not to say, no, that's wrong. I would say, interesting. Could we also see it a different way? Or does anybody want to add anything to it? So that they could then amongst themselves also continue discussing. And it seemed to have a very powerful effect. The reason why I share all this is because as technology continues to advance, more automation, more people are concerned about what may come of this world. And a lot of people are afraid that not only will the robots take our place, but that maybe we become robots. Maybe we just need to push certain buttons. And for that, I don't need to think. I don't need to know why or why not. And so the fear of dehumanizing us is really big. And the way that we approach that is by asking questions, by teaching from the heart, by looking at our students and sharing with them from the heart and the facts, and inviting them to do the same things so that we're not just little robots walking around who can answer a multiple choice quiz. We know how to repair a computer, but we can't use it. And we certainly cannot explain how to use it, but we can take out certain parts. So we don't want to be, as I write here, cogs in a machine. But with the issues that are coming up more quickly, more constantly, it becomes really important that we are creative thinkers. I mean, India just went into space very successfully. That could have not happened if you had just followed certain rules. You broke certain norms. There were questions being asked. And that's how, of course, we evolve further and further. And so by having said that, I know you care because you're here. I know you love what you do or you would not invest more time. And I know you care about your students. And the key point is that when we have conversations like this amongst ourselves and with our students, when we're asking ourselves and others, and then we are questioning ourselves and others, that is when we grow. And that's when we make sure that humanity is ready to handle and address all of the challenges that are currently coming and that are sure to come in the future. This is why I talk about ask why and why not. And that all is teaching from the heart. So I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into my style of teaching. And if there's time and if there are any questions, I'd love to answer the questions. Or anybody can reach out, of course, also afterwards. Thank you. Yes.
Hello, good evening, Dr. Bedkar sir, Principal sir. Good evening, I think it's a good afternoon for you over there.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Yeah. So wonderfully explained, and the how to teach from the heart. Because we are watching and observing so many ways of teaching, and many of the times, the classroom become monotonous, which where the children, the students sitting next to us, they are not absorbent. They are not taking the thing with him, and it happens. So I think that kind of why question really, it creates a kind of inquisitiveness among the learner, and that inquisitiveness makes him takes him to the next step, and he start learning further and further.
Yes.
So
Yes.
wonderfully, I no doubt, there are some other questions are also there: what, when, how, and they really explore the topic, and we can get the meaning. So
Yes.
in interactive sessions, yes, definitely we should go for this. But what I've seen, nowadays, that we are having some projects, or we are having some kind of the assignment like presentations are given, or sometimes you'll find the teacher is teaching in the class, and the whole class just follows him, and what the teacher says in the classroom is everything is correct. They accept it without much thinking, and there is no rational thinking whether it is right or wrong. We are not making a search of a real truth, and that is how we are somewhere we are closing them down.
Yes.
How to create that conducive environment, because many times it happens that the students are coming from some other teacher, and they are knowing their nature, and that is how they carry forward the same thing. They doesn't ask question, they sit quiet in the classroom. So I think why is really a kind of a key to explore any subject. I'm from the medical field, and when a patient comes to us, the complaint when he narrates, first question we ask why it is there, why he has developed this complaint, why he's having this symptom. So I think that is a very crucial and very important question, and definitely we can search like Sherlock Holmes or some CID or CBI or FBI. We can find out the disease conditions, and we work out on this. But my question is, the teacher is facilitator. How he can make this environment conducive, and where you'll find the students by themselves will come and will start asking question why and why not. With this, I really appreciate your lecture. Very decent way, soft way you have placed in front of us, and really, you have touched the core of this subject, and it is a subject of day-to-day life. And as a professors, teachers, every day we are using it. And I think this kind of subject really make people interested in the whatever the stream they are going with. So with this, I will conclude, but just comment on what I asked. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And you are absolutely right. There are times when I, for example, was teaching, students would come into my classroom and they would look at me when I ask a question, and they're looking at me, and I can see in their faces, they are trying to figure out what is the answer she wants. And I had to clarify. I said, there is no answer I want. What I want for you is to answer and give me the reason for your answer. And in some ways, it's a little easier in my field to say that, also a little more dangerous because politics get involved, and some person might say, I don't like X. And then you say, okay, why? That's when you get them thinking. And in the medical field, the why, I think, is so much more crucial as well, because you can go to a doctor and you can say, my hand hurts. And they will say, okay, here's a pill. That does not cure anything. It cures the symptoms, but not the root, as you know better than me. So how do we get to the root? And that's the why question. That's how come? Why does it hurt? I may not know the answer, but as a doctor, I can then start feeling, okay, does it hurt here or here or here? And I can make associations and try things out. And that's what we need in every field, whether it's English, whether it's medical, the medicine, whether it's history. And it is important to get other teachers on board. Now, having also worked in administration of the educational system, that sometimes can be difficult. Because we all know in some countries more than others, you have specific things that need to be achieved. And happened to me too, where we were told we only had a day from the final exam to turn in our grades. Well, I cannot grade 30 20-page papers in a day. It's impossible. And that is sad, because now I have to give them an exam that I don't like. But for example, I used things where I had an interactive exam. Nowadays I don't know, like things like Kahoot and so forth, but I actually created one on a PowerPoint, and I had everybody in the class, gave them little sticky notes, and instead of having them write things down, when I had a question on the board, they would either write it on their piece of paper or they would lift up the yes and no, and it was interactive. And most of them were highly successful in those types of exams. And when you say, students sometimes give presentations and so forth, I let them create things. I let them create a PowerPoint or a movie, whatever their field of interest is. And of course, I would walk outside with my students. When the weather was nice, I would go outside. I would say, we don't have to be in a classroom to discuss the second revolution. We can discuss this outside. Now, it doesn't work in every field, I know that, but there are ways, and the more that you, professor, and others are coming together and talking and living by example, the students will follow, and sooner or later, we can all teach like that. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, ma'am. Definitely the why will take us, beyond the class and beyond the text. So yes. that is a beauty of why. Thank you very much for your explanation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, Natalie. So I really enjoyed this. I am lately teaching leadership and self-confidence in a college.
Yes.
I think your session was absolutely brilliant. In even this idea of teacher as a coach, the new teacher as being a coach,
yes.
More than the old model now of command control. You need to do that. And what I think is I think when you ask why, in reality it can be very triggering. Because in order for asking why, I think as a teacher, you really need to talk to yourself and to be able to actively listening. And this society never taught us, no one of us, that we need also to listen sometimes, not only to speak. And also as teachers, can be triggering, but even physically, because the idea of being a teacher is teaching. So the idea of teaching is speaking. No, it is not. The idea of teaching is listening. So many times. So
yes,
that is very interesting. So more you go on, I can see myself also. When I arrive there, and I can see myself now, it's a practice. And it is a practice with yourself. That is the beauty of this practice. It's a practice with yourself, because when I arrived there, I was I needed to speak to them and to tell them mine and this and that. And at a certain point, I've seen them not very committed and involved. And I said, what do I have to do to change this? And all of a sudden, I said, I think I need to listen more than to speak.
yes.
And the next lesson, the next session with them, I organized it on this basis. and I had an impressive answer, positive
Yes.
answer from. And since then, that was the moment we started connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the moment they started being committed because they felt heard, they felt listened, they felt acknowledged. And this is the new generation. We were different. We were going to school with the idea that we need to listen. They are not anymore. They are going to school that with the idea that they need to be acknowledged, heard, seen.
Mm-hmm. Very well. Yes. And if I may, you brought up something very important, a number of things. So I agree, we are teachers, but we're also coaches because we're trying to get the best out of them, right?
Mm.
And I think a key point for us as teachers is you mentioned self-confidence. I have trained a number of teachers and seen a whole lot of teachers, and they are not self-confident. That's why they are scared of asking why. That's why they are scared of letting go of the reins. But as teachers, as you so wonderfully pointed out, it's important that we allow them to seek. We're just holding the space, really. Almost, I mean, if you wanted to go there, you could say, we're almost helping them in a meditation. We're holding their space for them so they can grow and explore. We're just giving them little things that they can use. And once they realize, as you said, they're heard, once they realize that they are allowed to seek, they become more self-confident. And the issue nowadays is with us as teachers. We often are not self-confident enough. So we don't dare to say, I don't know. We don't dare to give up the reins. And I think that's what we need to work on.
Completely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you for this brilliant session. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think one more point I want to make, sorry. What you said, is very correct that, the teacher doesn't dare, that he or she should say that, I don't know, I will find it out, the answer, or you find it out, and then tomorrow we'll discuss this. This inquisitiveness, but if we accept it at point, mind you, there is a growth of a teacher also. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.